Got me another book box, and this time it's Down the Rabbit Hole. I've accidentally locked myself into like a year's worth, so here I am. And I mean, I do like the books. Don't get me wrong. They're not in my usual genre though. These are all like horror, thriller books, and I enjoy these book boxes because they're books that I normally would not pick for myself. This time, I was sent Gone to See the Riverman. It's very short too. It's only like 200 pages, so this take me no time. But the incentive of these books is, once you read through, they mark certain spots to where you get to open a gift. A good incentive to really get through the book. So I figured I'll talk about how far I've gotten, and then I'll open up some of the gifts with you. Now this book is about a super fan who is a true crime, someone who loves true crime and gets caught up with a serial killer who's in prison now, and she's corresponding with him and like idolizing him in a way, and it's really strange, and it makes me cringe because I am a huge fan of true crime, but for a whole different reason, because I like to see justice served when the case is over. At the end, I like to see these people get what they deserve, and I get why people do take an interest in stuff like this, because they're not like that naturally, and it's hard to imagine that people can be monsters sometimes until you're faced with the reality that they do exist. And in the book, she sort of gets a thrill from it. She even admitted that like it seems like she's getting away with something, or it's secretive, something that she knows she's not supposed to be doing. It's dangerous. Lori is the main character, and she's corresponding with this killer Edmund, but she's done it with several other criminals too, except it's only escalated to the point now to where she's done it so much that she's slowly giving more and more of herself when she finally reaches Edmund. And you can clearly tell he's taken advantage of her vulnerability. They kind of idolize this idea that there's something private between just the two of them, that they feel like the only two in the world who know about these letters, and letters themselves are very personal. She even admits that when she was younger, she used to write notes to her friends in classes, and I think everybody misses that. I miss that too, writing hand letters and giving them to people, and then feeling like there's something special or personal between just you and that person. That's how it feels when she's writing these letters to Edmund. Except I do have sort of an issue with that, because I have a friend who was in jail, and we used to write letters back and forth. And it was real easy to write pages and pages of stuff you don't even realize that you would never say in person, because it's almost like you write and it's like a journal. You end up writing so much, your thoughts just come out, you know what I mean? And what they don't realize though is that all those letters get read before they get them. And I didn't know that when I was writing my letters. And it's not like I was writing anything weird or embarrassing, but just the idea that something you thought was private is being read by someone else first. That's what I don't think this book touches on. I don't know if they do that everywhere, because it's not even mentioned here. I just thought it reminded me of that when I read about that. And this is an adult book. Like I think she said she's a couple months away from turning 40. So she's 39. And her sister Abby is 41. And in between, we have this mystery of flashback to their childhood. And their younger brother Peter, or Petey, something like that, Pete, there was some kind of accident to where something happened to him, and it's affected them throughout their life now, because her and her sister is all they have left. And her sister at 41 is now like she has brain damage, and she didn't in the flashback. So something happened to the point where she's in this state now, and you can tell it's really hard on Lori as a caretaker to care for her sister, who's actually even older than she is, but she acts like a child in the way that she cares for nothing but like cartoons, toys, playing. go ahead and open the first gift since I reached that point. But this is what the box looks like. This is the I'm Your Biggest Fan box. Okay, yeah, there's 5. It's so tempting not to open them all at once, right? But if you can control yourself, it's a great incentive to get through the book real fast, trust me. Especially a 200-page book, that's nothing. So gift 1 comes in this little envelope here. And every time you open a gift, it will be related to like the passage you just read. It looks like a letter. Usually the gifts all have something useful you can use. They're not just... Okay, this is actually a mock-up of a letter from Lori to Edmund, which is really cool. It reminds me of Hunter Killer, you know, that game. Of course, I was subscribed to that, and I was so bad at it, I didn't get past a couple of months before I said no more. But we're talking about Lori and her sister's relationship, right? This seems out of place, but it's not really, because this actually has a huge impact on her story. The fact that her world is so enclosed to where it seems like the only people who matter are Edmund and her sister, and when she can't talk to Edmund, she's only talking to her sister. It puts some stress on the story because Abby is unpredictable. You don't know when she's going to have a fit, or if she's going to need something that you don't have, or if she's going to be upset, or if she's going to listen when you need her to. And now she has to take her sister with her on a perilous adventure through the dark and spooky woods that a serial killer has sent her on. And we have no idea how that's going to play out. On top of that, Abby doesn't understand anything relating to Edmund. All we know is that she kind of teases Lori and cheers her on for having a boyfriend. And Lori actually uses that as a reflection, or an excuse, more like it, because she's always saying yes, 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 and spurring her choices on, but she doesn't really understand what Lori's actually doing. Because if she would have known, if she's like in sound mind and she knew that her sister was talking to a serial killer and basically under his influence, clearly she would have the logic to talk her out of it, but she doesn't. So Lori sees that as she already trusts her sister from how they used to be, so she takes her advice very soundly, despite her mental state now. You know, she makes these comments like, oh, you're just going to marry your boyfriend, and I'm going to be the maid of honor. She doesn't even know what the maid of honor is. But Lori gets it in her head that she sees these fantasies really happening because of how Abby is mentioning it, and it's driving it further and further in. The thing is with these killers is that they know how to manipulate people. They spend their whole life targeting vulnerable people and watching and waiting for their moment. So they're very, very good at getting into someone's mental state. And you can see this with, especially he triggers jealousy in her, that there's this other girl that we don't even meet, but that he's also talking to, and she knows about this somehow, so he must have mentioned it. But she fits his victim category, his preference for the women, and so Lori automatically is jealous that she already has a heads up on that, so she automatically wants to try harder and get Edmund's approval, and he can clearly take advantage of this. She wants to do well because she's afraid of him choosing her over Lori, so he uses that to get her to even get to the main plot of this book, but he lets her think that it was her own decision when in reality it clearly was his. I also believe with this, it's just this generation of technology that we're in. They mentioned how people sometimes use Skype and all that. Like a while back, 5 years or so ago, Lori had a boyfriend, but says she doesn't have the physical energy to try and look for one now. She doesn't want to try again. And now she wants a mental relationship. And unfortunately, she found it in Edmund. And in a way, I can understand that because people, and I'm speaking from experience, like I know this personally, I know people who have said straight up that they do not want to start over and try again. They'd rather stay in a relationship they're so unhappy with because they think they're too old, that they're unattractive, they really don't have the confidence to start again, or they're just tired with the game of finding someone. And that's just not true. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and open the second gift because I got to that point. It feels very soft. I don't know. I'm not gonna spoil the book either, so I'm not gonna talk about what place relates to what. Oh, look, it's a cute little purse backpack thingy. That's very useful. It's not a spoiler to tell you to go into the woods, though, and obviously they need to take supplies. So this relates to that. I think if she had a legit boyfriend, she wouldn't have taken it this far because her attention would have been satisfied if she found somebody who was capable of communicating the way she wants them to. It also isn't a spoiler because on the back it says, she has to go to a cabin in the woods and retrieve a key and deliver it to somebody known as the Riverman. So it's not a spoiler. But my thing is, when I was reading this part, she knows about her task, apparently in a letter that he gave to her, that he needs her to go get a key. So when she arrives and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna go get this key for me?" I'm thinking these guards would have read these letters and seen that he's talking about a key, asking her to go do something. They would have put a stop to that immediately. They would have interrogated him, asked him, like, "What are you talking about?" And I don't know. It doesn't really matter. We can just easily say they probably didn't read the letters. Maybe not all jails do this. So I don't think I'm even 100 pages in, but I've got all of that so far. And I really enjoy that. Not even like 10, 20 pages in, it's really thought-provoking. Because you wonder about people's mental state when they start doing something like this. I'm curious about this cabin that he's sent her to. The woods are incredibly creepy and perilous enough as it is, but you never know who people are when you meet them. You don't know if the strangers are bad, you don't know if they're good people. And she's clearly out of her element when she talks about, like, the backwoods and stuff like this, which everybody thinks down here in the South. Everybody's weird and creepy, and it's to the point where I can't even argue with people. I can't tell them, no, it's not like that, because they don't believe me. They'd rather believe somebody they heard it from than believe me, somebody who lives there. Right off the bat, I'm going to make a guess here and say that the cabin is like maybe his origin story. Not like origin, but the place he started doing these killings. Could be where he hid a lot more bodies than they thought. Like, already, they think he killed upwards of 30 people or so. The bodies that they have, anyway. But I don't understand why she would need to get a key from this place and give it to someone else. You would think he would just have the key for her to see what's in the cabin, and then she would discover that. I don't know where this other guy comes into play. So I'm going to keep reading, and I'll see if my guess was right, and I'll open more of these gifts. It's much later, and I've read a bit more of On See the Riverman. So here we start talking about, like, depression and things like that. She is clearly using it as a distraction. She even says that. And she starts having this realization that it's getting dark and it's going to get creepy at night in the woods. And she has this realization all of a sudden that she'd never have a normal boyfriend if she sticks with what she's doing through Edmund. Because with normal boyfriends, or dating, as you say, you go out with each other, you communicate, you do things, but he is going to be in prison for practically the rest of his life, and they'll never have any sort of, like, intimacy or anything like that. And I really like that as soon as she reaches the shack, she starts to question the reality of what she's doing. The whole time she heard about it and kind of romanticized it until they actually see this for person in themselves and think about all of the horrible stuff that was done here, probably the possibility, and then your imagination takes over and it just gets worse from there. I'm a bit confused. There's a running theme in, like, horror movies and things like that where, like, sex is a big part of it for some reason, because I guess it explores the taboo and your animalistic nature, sort of like murder does to begin with. But for some reason it's a big part of this book all of a sudden, and it sticks with you. Like, they keep bringing it up, and I'm having a hard time finding out why. It seems a bit unnecessary to me, as if, you know, is it popping up in a random horror movie that it's going to be in a random scene in a horror book? I don't know. But one thing this book does really well is it does a good job of putting you in this headspace of being in a really creepy atmosphere. And there's a bunch of morbid interactions that the details do a real good job of explaining how it is to be in that situation. Sort of like, you know, interacting with dead bodies and stuff. How creepy that actually is. I don't want to say important part, but a big part of the book itself is being in this backwoods, like, southern environment that just seems to unsettle them for some reason. I guess not to me since I live in the South, but there are a lot of people who do get unsettled by just being in the South. So we run into this man who, like, legit lives off of a generator. Like, that's his whole life. He lives off the generator. Something I do enjoy, though, is that being in the South, we do have a bunch of, like, superstitions and stories. And when we happily, I don't want to say happily, but we tend to travel and just explore and meet people, and you take people in, and then you share stories with them. And that's how, think of it sort of like back to, like, Viking times when they didn't read or write, so they just told stories through poetry and exaggeration. And a lot of that's explored in here. It creates, like, this ghost character that nobody's actually seen, but everybody knows about. So I've reached the point to open up the next gift. It looks like this, in case you're wondering, so I'm going to open it. It's gift 3. I also have this thing where they keep meeting random strangers, and you never know if they're going to be a friend or foe or what. Okay, so this one is a visor, and it says, "I love dark books." I don't know if you can see that, the light's too bright. That's cute. I'll probably not wear that. I have to say, though, I'm a bit disappointed with this book's gifts. They're usually a lot more useful things. There's a huge part to Laurie's past that I did not see coming. I'm not going to spoil it, but it makes her character a lot worse. And I mean, it was already pretty bad to begin with. I usually like to play devil's advocate and say, you know, maybe there's a reason for this or that, but this time, no, there's no excuse for what happens in her past. Her sister is also another burden for her. We see in the past how she used to be and how she is now, despite Laurie taking care of her, but now she's acting really weird in the woods. I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully they'll explain it. The further in they go, she didn't think, you know, hiking into the woods would take so long. She expected to go there, go back, and be like, yeah, I did it. And it's more trouble than that. It's actual wilderness, and the adventure is waning off. It's cold, it's dark, it's creepy. Worst of all, there's probably mosquitoes. All the people they meet are weird, but have interesting stories. That's another thing about the South. So we have this crazy gossip about everyone. I could tell you the neighbor's darkest secret, and I don't even know their last name. Well, the app I'm using predicts that I'll finish this book in about an hour, so I'm going to try to do that tonight. Let's keep reading. So we got it all in this book. I'm this far into it, okay? Got just about like a fourth left, maybe. And I want to say about halfway through, it gets wild. This book gets wild about halfway through. I mean, we got bodies, we got jealousy, we got incest, we got murder, we got gore, we got everything. It's all in this book. 4, just a small one. Something about those woods isn't right. And I don't know if I trust either of them. What they think they see. Oh, check it out. It's a key. I wonder where this key goes to. I don't know what's going to happen in the end, but I do know that I fucking hate Laurie. Dude, Laurie, I thought she was going to be a level-headed, relatable person. You know, who just has a little bit of problems, or social problems or something. and we've come to find out she's way worse than what I thought. So I wonder where this is going. Ta-da! I finished it! It's 20 minutes after midnight. Longer than I expected. But I finished it. I have to say, I did not think this book was going to go down that dark of a path. And I'm just still a little bit mind blown from it. It's a good book. I don't want to be like, ooh yeah, cool, gore and blood and darkness and all that. But it was a good book into the insight and, psychology of sick-minded people like Lori. But no spoilers. I really hate Lori. Okay? There's a reason people like this connect, and they're usually very like-minded, and they sense each other. And she thinks that's cool, that we're alike, you and I. I'm gonna open the last gift. Number 5. Is it related to the last one, the key? And I don't know, but there seems to be kind of a supernatural element to it. You can't tell if stuff really happened or if they imagined it. And we do get to meet the Riverman, who is very enigmatic. Last gift is a pin, an enamel pin, and it says hell, admit one. I don't want to keep that. And I feel bad for everybody that Lori has ruined. Her childhood seems so normal to the point where there's no reason for it. Her family, her siblings. I do like that it doesn't try to excuse what happened on how they were raised, on a divorce, or any of that kind of stuff. Just somebody who's naturally like this, and it's a bit crazy. And this killer can sense that. So that's it. I've completely finished the book. And that was my take on it. I don't even know what I would rate it. Because there's a part of me that says, I don't want to praise this kind of behavior. But at the same time, it was written really well. As far as horror goes, it has that down pat. There are very uncomfortable scenes in here. And it's just back to back to back to back sometimes. That you don't understand how somebody can think some kind of way about another kind of person, but they do. It's just, I guess I don't naturally understand that. It was very interesting though. So that was my take on Gone to See the Riverman. I wonder what everybody else thought about it. Till next time.